The amazing thing about Margaret, when she would call Dad and tell him that it was on NBC, first thing he'd yell would be, "Joan!" Because he had no idea how to do the remote. None. Zero. Zero. So Joan had to come in and make sure it was on the right station all of the time. If you ever noticed too, when Dad was at St. Francis, the coaching staff, other than Brian Mahalik, was mostly older. Woody Bozio, Ed Murphy, Tony, I'm trying to think, Mr. Grant, Joe Heinsohn, all guys that couldn't hear real well, okay? That had to do with the singing, guys, I'm telling you right now. And you heard him yelling up there. I mean, how many times, you know, did the guys that played baseball, again, I can still hear it now, where you had the great back, as you had to get back as you took your lead off first base. Or how many times, again, coaches, what do we have here? I mean, the terminology that he used. We had gypsy camp. We would trade you for a dog and shoot the dog. Dad was a great dog lover. The last 30 years, had two wonderful dogs. Our family, we had one dog. Okay, we did such a great job, it ran away after 2 weeks. We never had another pet for the rest of our lives, ever, ever. So, at this time, we certainly would like to bring up one of Dad's former players at Lewis, both baseball and basketball. Worked with Dad at Lewis and at the University of St. Francis, and one of his true dearest friends, and that's Tony Delgado. Tony.
Del Rancho, you're not tired. You just think you're tired. Tom Dean may not have been tired. Tom Kennedy may not have been tired. Coach, I was dying. We're on a trip. Coach and I are going to speak at a clinic. We're going to put a baseball clinic on in Springfield, Missouri. Okay, many of you are aware of Coach's terrific driving habits. He's got the early shift. We leave right after practice. He drives through Illinois, Friday night traffic, heavy traffic. He goes 80 miles an hour. He goes 30 miles an hour. He tailgates. He weaves in and out. No problem. I get the night shift. I'm in Missouri. 2 a.m. There's not another car on the highway. Now, it's a 4-lane highway. 2 lanes over here, separated by the greenway. 2 lanes over here. So I'm driving right down the middle of these 2 lanes, right over the white strip. I'm not in the right, left, I'm right over the white strip. Out of nowhere comes, I pull over. Roll down the window. Yes, officer? Well, you were driving down the middle of the highway. Yes, officer, I know that. There's no other traffic here. Well, that's against the law. Well, what can I say? Well, I'm going to have to give you a ticket. Coach was 80 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, weaving, tailgating, no problem. I'm the only car, I get a ticket. Now let's go back to when I'm 18 years old. I'm driving with Coach. We're coming home from a basketball trip late at night. We're on a 4-lane highway. He's driving right down the middle of the road. I asked him, I said, Coach, why are you going down the middle of the road? He says, well, if something goes wrong with the car, you have more room to go right and more room to go left. Made sense to me. It just didn't make sense to that Missouri State Trooper. Every now and then, Coach felt like he had to ream the team out. For no particular reason, he was just, it's time to ream the team out. So we're getting ready to enter the playoffs. It's 2 days before the playoffs. He gets the team out in left field, and he starts on them. He's pointing at the starters. I don't owe you guys a freaking thing. I don't owe you guys nothing. I owe you nothing. It's these guys I owe something. He's talking now. He's pointing to the 9 starters. But I don't owe you guys nothing. Nothing. That went on for about 5 minutes, and all of a sudden he just stops. And he says, be sure and get 3 square meals tomorrow. On the subjects of political correctness and political incorrectness, Coach had them both covered. Okay? About 25 years ago, we were leaving here, Joliet. Joan will remember this. We're leaving Joliet to go on our southern trip. At that time, we would drive straight through, 20 hours, straight through down to Houston or somewhere. So Coach, he was anxious to get out of Dodge. Okay, let's get going. Let's get on. We got 20 hours to go. Okay. We got as far as Brick Street. All of a sudden, the vans pull over. They said, Coach, we forgot to fill up the vans with gas. That was the captain's responsibility. Whoa, here goes. Here comes Coach. The steam is coming out. All right, let's get off of Brick Street, fill up the vans with gas. I'm driving Coach's car. He's in there with me and Joan, and I think my wife is in there. And okay, then we have to get something out of the trunk. I open the trunk. I close the trunk. Get ready to start. No keys. They're in the trunk. Now here's where the political correctness comes in. The wrath of Gord, and for those who played for him, take out the R, the wrath of Gord did not descend on that American Mexican who was driving and who left the keys in the car. The wrath descended upon Joan, who didn't have the extra set of keys. I got off scot-free. If I'm not mistaken, Betsy had the keys, and we went back to find Betsy, and Betsy wasn't at home. We had to hunt Betsy down. Well, it took us about 2 hours to get out of Dodge. So Coach wasn't too happy at that moment. Mike alluded to Coach's music acumen. Okay, well, you know, this popular music of the last 10 years, Coach wasn't quite up to date on that. You know, and one day we were going on a trip and he's telling the players, okay, I'm going to be in a band now. And listen, I don't mind you playing your music. I don't mind you playing loud. But I don't want to hear any of this chanting. All the players looked at each other, chanting. I said, boys, he means rap. We were at one of the World Series one time when it was 95, I think it was. We're at the World Series, and at the pre-tournament banquet, they announced that there's a big rock concert tomorrow. We have free tickets for anybody that wants to go. Any of the players, okay, any of the coaches, anybody wants to go. Joan, my wife Joanne, me, my son Jared, my daughter Joelle, and my son-in-law Mark, we say, we're going bowling. Coach is going to be the young guy. Okay, he's going to be the hip guy. He's going to be with the young crowd. So he puts on a nice sport coat, shirt and tie, nice slacks. Coach Kajawa goes with them. They go to the rock concert. They get in there, and the first thing Coach realizes, there's no sport coats, there's no ties, there's old blue jeans, torn T-shirts, sweatshirts with writing all over them. That's the first thing he realizes. Next thing he realizes is, there's nowhere to sit down. You don't sit down at these rock concerts. You stand up. And then the music starts. Speakers. Oh, speakers everywhere. And who's playing? Ted Nugent. I saw Coach next day. I said, Coach, how's the rock concert? Tony, that was the worst thing I've ever done in my life. You know, when people travel to Mexico, even baseball teams, they make sure they go to places like Acapulco, okay, Puerto Vallarta, Cancun, Mazatlan. Coach decides we're going to go to Tampico. Okay, now, if you looked at 1992, if you look at a tourist guide and read up on Tampico, here's what the description. Tampico, an industrial town surrounded by swamps. All in all, not a bad place to spend one night, if you're passing through. We're going to spend 10 nights there. Now, many of you old-timers out there, you remember that movie, it's Treasure of Sierra Madre. You remember the scene where Humphrey Bogart is sitting on the bench with, I think it was Tim Holt, the young guy, and Humphrey Bogart saying, what is there to do in this sleeping town? What is there to do? Nothing. How can we get out of here? We can't wait to get out of here. That was Tampico. We sat on that bench for 10 straight nights, wondering, when can we get out of Tampico? Okay, first day of the tournament. We're going to breakfast. 105 degrees in the shade, humidity. Coach is hanging on the bus, hanging on the straps, his head down like this. Coach Playock and I look at him, we know what's going through his mind. I'm 65 years old. I just came through a long baseball season. What am I doing here? Well, he was there because Matty, his grandson, was on the team. Little did he know that in a few hours he was going to learn that his grandson, because he didn't pass the so-called Cuban bone test, I won't go into that, but they determined that Matty was overage, his Cuban bone test. So he was only going to be allowed to play half the games. So you're there for your grandson, and he's only going to be able to play half the games. Well, the tournament begins. About the third game, okay, coach, we stand out the dugout. Outside the dugout, that's how we coach. And it's 100 degrees and humidity, okay? And coach has got a nice polo shirt on, he's got his baseball hat on, he's got Bermuda shorts on. And all of a sudden, we hear over the loudspeaker, Coach Gillespie, please report to El Presidente box. So coach is over there, behind the screen over there. The coach goes over there. He comes back. He says, Arnie, Tony, you guys stay outside the dugout and coach. I'm banished to the dugout. He couldn't get outside the dugout. Now here's a guy that next year is going to be the winningest coach in the history of collegiate baseball, and he's coaching a 12-year-old team in Tampico, and he's banished to the dugout. Now it's the sixth game of tournament. Okay, in this game, Matty's able to play because we're playing Mexico, and they also have a guy who failed the Cuban bone test. So when they had two teams playing they could play each other. Okay, well, the Mexicanos are going to stick it to the Gringos. The Gringos are 1-4, and Mexico's 5-0. Jack was there, Billy was there. This stadium seats about 3,000 to 4,000 people. I'm not exaggerating. There had to be 7,000 to 8,000 people there. They were everywhere. They were on top of our dugout. They were stomping at our dugout. We couldn't stay in dugout. We were lined up along the right field foul line. They were like really field. They were on the rooftops. There were bands playing out there. They were going to stick it to the Gringos. Okay, well, first inning, Matty comes up. He gets hit with a pitch. Matty flips his bat. 8,000 people. Boo! 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 Now imagine you're a grandfather, and there's 8,000 people booing your grandson. The temperature's rising, okay? It's rising. Second inning, there's a little kid that didn't get to play too much. He comes and tugging on coach's uniform. Coach, when can I get to go in? Go back and stand on the line. I'll tell you when you get to go in. Third inning, Manny comes up. Boom! Puts it in orbit. Okay? Third inning, the little kid comes up to coach, tugging on coach again. Coach, when can I get in? When can I get in? Go stand over there. I'll tell you when you can get in. I'll tell you. Fifth inning, Matty comes up. Whop! Puts another one in orbit. Little kid comes up, tugging on coach's uniform. Coach, when can I get in? When can I get in?
I coached over 4,000 freaking games. I'll tell you when you can get in. Now go stand on there and get up.
Coach lost it. They lost it. We went on to win the game 10-0. Credit to the people in Tampico. They loved their baseball. They gave us a standing ovation when the game was over. '93 World Series. Pre-tournament banquet, a couple clowns by the name of Heinzen and Delgado, due to who's on first routine, so the rest of the team sitting there knew, don't worry about those guys from St. Francis, they're a bunch of clowns. Okay, now it's the second night of the tournament. It's a late game. okay? Coach is sitting there with his wife Joan and my wife Joanne and my son Jared and my daughters and her husband are up on the balcony, okay? It's a pretty empty stadium because of a late game, okay? And all of a sudden, a bird flies over. And Coach asked my son Jared, says, Jared, what if there's a fly ball hit and the bird catches the ball and goes over the fence? What's your call, Jared? Jared says, it's a foul ball. Jerry, it's a foul ball. Jerry, it's a foul ball. And Jerry, we're in Iowa here, and it's gonna go over the fence, and the farmers here in Iowa, they're gonna get their shotguns out, and they're gonna start trying to shoot that bird down. Jared, I can't believe it, Jared. That was the part of Coach that some of us got to see. Okay, he'd go on these laughing jacks. It was unbelievable, unbelievable. Joan and her family gave my wife and I an opportunity to see Coach just a few days before he passed away. And as I stood there at the bed, at first Coach's eyes were closed, and and I took his right hand and put it between my two hands. And I started talking to him, okay, and his eyes opened a little bit, okay, and then I was pretty much just thanking him for all he's done for me personally, for my family, okay, and just I was so thankful, and I'm thankful for Joan and family for allowing me to do this. But it came time to leave, and I said, Coach, I'm gonna have to leave now, and why don't you get some rest? And I took my hands from his hand, and he took his finger and he put it to his heart. He wasn't doing that for me, just me. He was doing that for all of us here. He was doing that for the thousands that he has touched personally. He was doing that for the generations and generations to follow that will be influenced by his life, by his career. So I'm going to ask you all right now, if you would, take your finger, put it to your heart, so that Coach will know that his spirit will forever live in our hearts.